in the bathroom kind of echo.
Yes.
Not a feedback echo.
Which we might just have to live with.
Yeah, it's not horrible.
Yep. So I just press go live. I just press live. Any folks that are joining us, we are starting a little late because we are once again having some audio issues. So we'll be doing our pregame now, and then probably starting in about 15 to 20 minutes. Those are folks that are watching us. If you could let us know if you're hearing an echo, because that's obviously the priority. If you guys are hearing an echo, then we have a real problem. So just bear with us as we try to iron out some of these issues. All right, so I don't have it open in YouTube. Let me add Bob back.
All right. Test.
Still an echo.
Still sounds fine to me. I'm obviously not the person to ask because
this is crazy because I've been on 3 StreamYard shows the last 3 weeks and no echo issues. So I don't understand why we keep having.
Were you hosting, or were you joining?
No, I wasn't. But nobody had any reverb problem. So I don't know if it's me or.
Good to see you here. We're having an issue with what's on this lap. Couldn't tell you. Darn thing about it. You're nice, Henry.
All right. Hello, Cindy. Are we echoing for you?
Want a beer?
From Northern Maine.
Are you hungry, Dave?
maybe I am hearing an echo and I just can't sort it out from the voices in my head.
All right.
We're writers. We're used to feedback loops. All right. Come on.
Hello, Margaret. This is Todd.
I think it's my fault. Well, that's not telling me. However, the part and the whole. Oh my god!
Guys. All right. This is not working.
Forget it.
Tom's parents. So we have earbuds here. Kelly mentioned earbuds, but I don't know if it's make any difference. Tom's got headphones on.
Always put them on.
I couldn't locate. I tried to turn them on. Bluetooth. Is Chuck still back in?
You see me?
Hello? Sorry, Chuck. Chuck, are you echoing?
I hear an echo.
Echoing.
So we're live. We may just have to plunge into the show as it is.
Wait, is there an echo now?
No.
Okay. If I muted Paul.
Paul's fault.
Paul, you ignorant.
It's Paul's laptop.
The only one who didn't hear an echo all night.
Yeah, that's the hint. So I guess what we'll do. Here, one second. What we'll do is we'll have Paul control his mic. He can mute and unmute. If he wants to talk, he can unmute himself and talk, and we'll just be quiet.
I'll do. And then you all shut up and I'll talk.
The only problem with this is if Paul gets murdered and he's muted. I'm still echoing, aren't I?
Yeah.
Because Paul's on. Mm-hmm. His microphone's on.
So
he'll be in the driver's seat.
Sorry, Paul.
So Paul's off.
Sorry, Paul.
So I'm not echoing anymore. So
yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
It could be a Windows to Mac.
So we should turn ours off.
Well, yeah, but I'm on a Mac too.
Oh, I guess not.
Am I still echoing?
No, there's no. The echo has been banished.
Damn it, Paul.
And I checked with Paul. Paul,
right, let's get our co-host here, Tom McDonough, back into the screen now.
And Paul, I had everything set up correctly. I checked.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Hey, man.
Yes, we're over at Tom's house tonight because we try to travel around a bit. Chuck was supposed to be with us, but Chuck is, as I'm sure you guys have heard, got COVID. So now we're laboring on our own, but we figured it out.
I'm on the other side of it. I'm doing okay. It wasn't too bad this time.
Good.
We also have Dave Jones here as a
off-screen
guest. Dave, come introduce yourself. Word. Okay, you can't see him. Since Kevin left my job, I had to find a new work wife. Dave's it.
All right. So shall we get started? Just plunge right in and jump in, or do we need a minute? All right. So
I'm good.
Okay. So those of us that joined us early, we were supposed to start our pregame at 7:00, but we had to iron out some tech issues, which we still good to keep ironing these out, but we'll get it there. So welcome to Into the Abyss, the Cemetery Dance Publications. Kevin Lucia,
Thomas McDonough,
Dave Jones off screen, Chuck Breyer, and our guest tonight is Paul F. Olson, the author of The Night Prophets and Alexander Song, and Bob Ford. Bob Ford's an Into the Abyss favorite. There's Alexander Song. There's Dead Pennies by Bob Ford. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing awesome.
Good.
Doing great.
Thanks for having us.
Nice. I'm glad. Thanks for weathering through our audio issues. So anyway, usually we start the show. Usually we've planned all this out in pregame, but because we were sorting ourselves out with pregame, we'll just dive right in. So usually what we like to do is we like to share our libations that we're enjoying for the evening. I'm driving, so the only libations I'm enjoying tonight is a gigantic Monster energy drink. So Tom, what are you enjoying this evening? You're gonna have to show that off too.
We're at my house, so I'm drinking a lot. In fact, I went to the store and Sam Adams, if most Sam Adams does a winter list. Well, they also have an October one too. So I'm actually having an Oktoberfest. They have some other ones as well. Hoppy Lager, Flannel as well. And this, we actually have ourselves a nice little beer stein. So for Oktoberfest, I say Prost.
The history teacher's got his big old beer stein. So, yeah. So, Bob, what are you enjoying this evening?
Tonight, I am enjoying a Lancaster baked pumpkin pie ale.
Oh, my God.
Ooh, how does that taste?
Earlier, I tested it out. It needs to be cold. Okay. Other than that, it's awesome. It's great. Oh, it's good find.
Oh, cool. Chuck, what are you enjoying tonight? You're at home, so you're feeling sick. So obviously, you need a little bit of Grandpa's cough medicine to help.
Yeah, I've been taking Advil and Tylenol, so I'm sticking to Cherry Coke.
Oh, okay. Paul, do you have any libations you're enjoying this evening?
I do. I have a very special family vintage 2023 NyQuil.
Yeah, I think we've all been
Diet Pepsi and
Diet Pepsi. All right.
I'm ready for
so Rob and I are the only two cool guys here.
So as the night goes on, Bob and McDonough are the ones that will start slurring their speech a little bit. So.
Yeah. Nah.
So usually the second thing that we like to talk about, just to get things warmed up, is obviously this is not only our Cemetery Dance show, but we're all things horror. Ooh, Chuck. My cursor is hovering right over the remove button. There you go. I'd hate to accidentally remove you. But we like to talk about some of the upcoming horror things that we see out there in the horizon, either books or movies or shows or things we're excited about. We'll start with you, Chuck. Have you seen anything out there that you're excited about that you want to see on the horror horizon?
Yeah, there's what's the name of it? It's the Edgar Allan Poe series they're doing on Netflix coming up.
The Fall of the House of Usher with Mike Flanagan.
Fall of House of Usher, and I just recently learned that it's not really a single story; it's an anthology. So I am hyped for that one. I think October 12th, but it's coming up soon.
Yeah, that's Mike Flanagan's strength, is he really does a great job melding things together. Because really, we lost Bob Ford.
No, geez,
but
I see him. I see him. He's there.
He's back. All right. Really, The Haunting of Hill House, he just kind of diced up and re-spliced it into his own thing. And The Haunting of Bly Manor was actually like 3 or 4, of Henry James's stories. And same thing with the Midnight Club. He mixed all those things together to create his own thing. So I'm really excited, about that. Yep. Anything else besides that, Chuck, or is that the main one that you're looking at?
That's the big one on my mind right now. I'm trying to remember. I saw some other ones that looked interesting. I think Paramount Plus had something that looked interesting. They've got a Pet Sematary movie coming out, a prequel.
Yeah.
When the Wendigo did it.
That's hey Brian. That's the one with David Duchovny in it, right?
Wait, it's got David Duchovny in it. Now my interest is.
This isn't a recliner.
Yeah, I think
underneath left. No, I'm here.
Did Brian?
My
Pet Cemetery Bloodlines.
Oh,
that's it.
With David Duchovny.
I
They're busy trying to figure out a recliner next to us.
It's here. I'm grabbing Dave's dick. Try the right side.
There you go. Cemetery is live and uncensored.
I promise that's not what's
Try
happening.
the right side.
I keep telling Tom that's for the OnlyFans page, but he doesn't ever listen. He's like, let's just give.
They're busting teachers.
He's like, let's just give the public what they want. So.
Well, they're busting teachers who are making $10,000 a month.
So, Chuck, Pet Cemetery Bloodlines.
Yep.
I feel like there's a movie out there that everyone's talking about right now. It's called You Can't Be Saved or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the title of that movie?
No one's going to save, but it's more looks like sci-fi than anything else.
Yeah, but sci-fi could be horror. I mean, look at Aliens.
No one
but
Mr. Strict genre lines over here.
it's not being strict. I just said, I want to go to a horror movie. I don't want to see aliens.
Aliens are horrific.
Well, it depends. I got my pants down and the lube's out.
Take another drink. Mr. Ford, have you seen anything on the horror horizon that you're looking forward to? That's not alien porn.
I am beyond stoked.
No.
At first, I was very, very cautious and disappointed. But when I saw the trailer, I am beyond stoked to see The Exorcist.
The Believer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Starring the original star of the show, Ellen Burstyn.
Yep.
Exactly. And when I saw her come on, and she is the character. She is the mother of Reagan. And I was like, you know what? Okay, I'm still cautious going in, but I'm cautiously optimistic for that.
Very nice.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, very nice. What about you, Paul? Have you got anything that you've been looking forward to in the horror horizon? Things that piqued your interest?
Well, I definitely second Fall of the House of Usher. I've been waiting for that. Seems like forever. And book-wise, I'm really eager for The Reformatory, which is coming out, I think, at the end of the month, end of October. Now, I'm not sure if that's a horror novel or a dark history novel, but it's Tananarive Due, so I'm all in, whatever it is.
Yeah. And there's a nice crossover there between history and horror. I mean, it could be the same thing. So, yeah. Cool.
It'll be plenty horrific either way, so I'm eager for that. I think it comes out like on Halloween, so.
Two things I just thought of. The new season of Creep Show will be coming out through Shudder, which I've really enjoyed that. I mean, some of the episodes can be a little uneven, but I just really get a kick out of those Creep Show episodes. And I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Hell House series, the found footage series. Oh, if you haven't watched the Hell House series, I highly recommend it. They're all on Shudder and I think Tubi. I think the first one is the best one, and the sequels get a little bit less rewarding. But they're put out by Terror Films, I think. And they've got a prequel coming up called The Carmichael Manor that's going to be on it's going to be releasing on Halloween night, I think. And if you've seen that, I highly recommend, if you haven't seen the Hell House shows, then I would absolutely, recommend those. Has nothing to do with Richard Matheson's Hell House. It's all about a found footage series about this cursed, haunted attraction. And it's really, you know what I'm talking about, right, Bob?
Yeah. Now that I didn't until you just said the attractions, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember seeing part of that now. No, I want to check the rest of that out. I saw a clip on like YouTube or something, and I was like, all right, I'm intrigued by that.
Yep. Yeah. And probably one last thing that I would mention that I think was worth watching, and Bob is the one who set me on this years ago, and he asked me, "You ever seen this show called Hellier on YouTube?"
Hellier, yeah.
Yeah. So not only do they have 2 seasons out, and they have a 3rd season that's on the way, and it's really fascinating stuff. I wouldn't call it strictly horror, but it's everything from cryptids to the Mothman, to government conspiracies, to aliens, and it's really, really good stuff. They did a movie here recently called The Unbinding, about how supposedly they came across this haunted artifact that it had a witch's soul bound to it, and I don't know if the Hell House, or not Hell House, I don't know if the Hellier crew is like whether it's genuine or not, but it looks genuine, and the production values are very, very high.
Yeah. And that first season I was floored by. I thought it was that found footage kind of vibe and feel to it, but man, it reeled me in, and I was like, no, I got to see. I don't care whether it's real or not. I have to follow this at least to the end and see what's going on here.
Yeah. First season of Hellier was one of the best cryptid stories I've seen.
Yeah. Whether or not you believe in paranormal investigation shows, whether they're real or not, the production values were just off the scale. They're just wonderful. So,
well, and when they started talking about that chain of caves and caverns, that's there. If you look along the Appalachian Trail and start looking wherever there are caverns, all along that map, there are tales of those things everywhere along the trail, which is why immediately I was like, oh, well, I'm drawn in no matter what. I have to see what's going on in this series.
what was cool about the unbinding is it took place in the Catskills, New York.
Oh.
So apparently, in the unbinding, these hikers found like a totem is not the right word. I don't know what the word is for like a statue that's been carved. And
It could be a totem. Totem is a very general title for it.
It's totem. It was something else. So
It doesn't have to be a totem.
there was a really specific term for it. I can't remember what it is, but they found this meticulously carved statue of this woman with nails in her eyes and a noose around her neck. And as soon he took it home, which is like number one, you never do, right? You find so they started reporting all these strange things happening and things like that. And what Greg Newkirk and Dana Newkirk, the guys that run Hellier, they have the traveling museum of the paranormal. So they basically they're like real life Ed and Lorraine Warren, but hopefully not as skeezy. But like, you know how the Ed and Lorraine Warren had that famed locked vault of all these. Well, these folks actually do that, and they go around to conventions bringing these things. They had this one. They said it was the reactions were so violent and things like that. And that's the whole movie is about that. So it's on Amazon Prime, and it was a really good watch. So,
and that's called The Unbinding.
The Unbinding, yeah.
I gotta check that out.
It was good.
So Kevin, I just quickly Googled upcoming, horror October 2023, and Google gave a list of what's coming out in October for horror. Killers of the Flower Moon, Five Nights at Freddy's, The Exorcist Believer, Totally Killer, Foe, and Taylor Swift: The Eras Tour.
Oh my god. That's awesome.
Okay.
That's awesome. So we'll do one more thing before we jump into talking to our authors. Recently, Cemetery Dance went to the movies, and we went and saw The Nun. And we gave a little... The Nun 2, that's right. And we did a little brief video that we posted to the YouTube channel, but we said we would share some greater thoughts, here on the show. So, Chuck, what was your thoughts about the Nun 2? How did you feel about that?
It was good. Not my favorite. It was decent, I guess I would say. I put it good, not great. But it's a lot of fun, and it actually felt more like almost like an action movie with horror elements in it.
Right.
And so there was a lot more of that kind of intensity than I expected. But that's not a bad thing. That was part of the fun. So I did highly enjoy it. I did make some jokes about the fact that how many scenes were shot in the same hallway over and over again. There was many scenes filmed in the same spot. It kept coming back. It was just interesting. But in terms of the overall story and production, it was a lot of fun. It was really well done.
Awesome. Tom, what do you think?
Well, considering the fact that I work in a Catholic school, I know the absolute terrifyingness reality of nuns. I mean, usually the only one we have left, you might get your eyes poked out. Sorry, Dave works there too. He knows. I love period pieces. I do love the use of religious horror as well. And, I mean, it was a good movie. It's not like I'm going to say, oh, it was so wonderful and great, because it was, first of all, a sequel. And if we were looking at scares like between The Nun and The Nun 2, the first Nun was scary because of its remote location.
I think it was the first one was more intense. Yeah, definitely.
And not to mention, I didn't like the whole, okay, we're going to make everything quiet because there's going to be a huge, huge scare coming up, which I absolutely hate because, in my medical condition, I can't snap my neck back and break it anymore. But you know what? I think it was a movie worth watching.
You bring up an interesting thing there, Tom. What you mentioned religious horror.
Oh, they're going to talk about 20 boot nuns.
No, that's later. That's later.
That's in the after show.
Yeah. Now, when I first saw The Exorcist, it scared the hell out of me. I was floored. I thought it was phenomenal. To me, from what I've seen, religious horror doesn't have the same impact on younger generations right now. And I was wondering, is that would you agree, or is that what you've seen?
You're out of the religious school.
Now teaching in the public sector, so I'm not.
Actually,
go ahead.
What? I'll say something, and we're gonna have Dave say something because he's got a similar experience. And you teach the APs too, so they're the smarties. I would say this: the kids have more awareness, especially of the Catholic faith. It's the church that actually does exorcism, but with the upcoming Exorcist movie, they're talking about exorcism from all religions, which I really want to see. In terms of the kids actually have to be aware of who is coming for them. Because when I first saw the original Exorcist, I thought it was the devil, Lucifer. No, it's Pazuzu.
Pazuzu.
And I would love to get a little deeper into it. Do you remember when we saw that movie about the Bronx cop who had to deal with possession?
Oh, it had Eric Bana in it. What was it called? It was Eric Bana.
Deliver Us from Evil.
Deliver Us from Evil.
Yeah.
What I liked about that is the soldiers who got possessed, it was in Baghdad, which sits on top of Babylon. So I would love to see this concept of digging into the ancient past and like demons or gods who existed before the Judeo-Christian God, and maybe they're the demons too. I don't know. I mean, I think the kids would like it. What?
Cthulhu.
I'm not talking about Squidward. But Dave, what do you think? I mean, do you think the kids wouldn't be
less afraid of religious horror today?
Yeah, I don't have enough experience with what you guys are talking about, like directly, of course, but I'd say just a lot of genres in general. Like it's hard to surprise anybody these days with like anything at all. One thing that actually I found every year, I show the movie Schindler's List, and I found like that, like I kind of kept that movie sacred because there's nothing else I can keep sacred.
Real horror. But I mean, I will say, without giving away spoilers from The Nun 2, to see a dead altar boy beat down his living mother with an incense burner is quite an experience.
I want to go back to what Bob said, even though I'm now apparently teaching the public sector, and because I teach in the public sector, I'm no longer qualified to speak on these things. Bob, I actually have to agree with you. There's not even just kids. I think when you're talking about, and I hate to be like, you millennials and you Gen Z,
no.
being a Gen X myself, I think that it's very cyclical. I think we go through these cycles where, okay, we're not afraid of spiritual things anymore. We're afraid of Hostel. We're afraid of Saw. We're afraid of Michael Myers.
That men do.
We're afraid of bodily dismemberment,
yes.
Right? And I think we go through these cycles where that's what we're really afraid of. But the funny thing is right when we were at the peak of that, and I'm sort of spitballing here, I don't have a timeline. Right when we were at the peak of that, suddenly the Conjuring series roars onto the scene, and look how popular it is. So, and I don't know if the viewer breakdown there is, but I think we go through these cycles where, okay, we're not afraid of spiritual things right now. This is what we're afraid of. But then after we've seen enough of those movies, suddenly you have a fresh movie come out about demon possession or ghosts or something like that. And it kind of, because we haven't seen it in a while, it kind of like pokes that primordial, that whole idea. Of
I do actually have a movie I saw that I'm going to suggest kind of fits that bill, but I want to pass the question to Paul so we don't ramble on, but I'm going to unmute him so that he can chat.
Poor ball.
Well, I definitely agree with just about everything that's been said, and especially, Bob kicking it off with the when you saw The Exorcist when it first came out, it was absolutely terrifying. And when you eavesdrop on online discussions these days of people talking about seeing that movie, they tend to ridicule it, laugh at it, and it just doesn't seem to have the power for younger moviegoers today. So, and I suppose Kevin, you would have a lot more insight in this than I, but there's a lessening of religious awe across the population, and respect for religion, and interest in religion. And so if you don't feel that fear and that awe and that respect when you contemplate the great mysteries and the hereafter, then, you know, a religious horror movie is probably not apt to scare you a whole lot. You might get some good jump scares, and that's about it.
Yeah. This is actually a perfect area to kick it right over to Paul. Actually, entirely, if we're talking about religious horror, I don't know if we necessarily call the Night Prophets religious horror, but I still think that it's as far as a vampire novel and how you intertwined all of that with United Ministries and things like that, which is the huge global missionary church organization in your novel. This seems like the perfect segue for us to jump in and for you to tell us a little bit about the Night Prophets and your background to writing it, you know, and what it's about. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that?
Well, it's been so long since I wrote it that, you know, I wrote it in the mid 80s originally, and it's hard to remember what was going on back then, except that I have talked about it so much over the years when different editions of the book have appeared, and I've written about it quite a bit. So whether it's 100% true or not, I've certainly created a mythology behind the book in my own mind. Yeah, they're definitely, it's not, I don't think it is a religious horror novel, although religion is the setting and the background and the context of the story. I really wanted to write a vampire novel and looked for a unique way to do that, and hit on religion. And of course, in the mid 1980s, you know, it was the televangelists. That was the era of the televangelist. You know, it was Jimmy Swaggart and Jerry Falwell and Rex Humbard and Ernest Angley and you know, you name it. And when you turned on the TV at 11 o'clock at night, instead of infomercials for Ginsu knives and Popeil pocket fishermen, you were apt to come across a televangelist promising salvation for a couple of bucks. And of course, a lot of those televangelists got in a lot of trouble. Jim and Tammy Faye, and just for starters. And that made an interesting background to me for a story of vampirism. And you know, it's a pretty ham-fisted, blatant symbolism of you know, a religious movement sucking the blood from its the financial lifeblood from its followers, and what if they were sucking the actual blood from their followers? So, and I had a great amount of fun creating that religious movement and trying to make it just different enough from the real televangelists at the time, from Jim and Tammy Faye and Jerry Falwell. And so everything that people criticize them for, I tried to make Universal Ministries in my book take the opposite approach, so that it would explain how they were able to draw in so many followers, particularly younger followers. So it was an interesting, you know, and of course, then there's all sorts of problems. How do you deal with vampires hiding in a church? How does that work logistically? And it would, for a long time, I felt like I was putting together hundreds of different puzzle pieces and trying to make it work. And yeah, and I hope it did. You know, we're still talking about it all these years later, so I guess it did.
Well, I think Greg Giffuen had the perfect blurb in saying that it's still relevant today. I mean, when you're talking about and I don't mean to disparage churches by any means in general when I say this, but when it's well documented, the cases of abuses that we've seen in these huge mega churches and ministries and things like that. That's a novel that you know, that's a novel that's still relevant. That idea of this evil hiding within this gigantic ministry that has all of this scope and this reach. You know, it's absolutely still a relevant novel. Another great novel. Again, this is my personal favorite.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say the days of the televangelists are over, but the spirit of the televangelist lives on in a lot of places in a lot of ways. So I hope it's still relevant because of that.
It definitely is. I see Bob chuckling a little bit over there.
Oh,
Bob,
yeah.
anything you want to add in there? Or?
No, I agree with Paul 100%. I mean, I read The Night Prophet when I saw that it was being reissued. I'm like, well, I have no idea where my original copy possibly could have gone. I'm totally getting another copy now. But I remember reading it not long after it came out, and like you said, all the TV evangelists, you couldn't get away from them. They were everywhere. They were making news. They were getting publicity. And the relevancy. Oh, it holds up, Paul, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So another one. Oh, sorry, Paul.
I was gonna say I don't want to keep people
yes.
waiting. Yeah, I don't want to keep people waiting too long. I mentioned earlier I had a movie suggestion I thought kind of fit this bill, and I'm actually gonna think there's two movies I saw this summer that fit. One kind of had a slight deviation from what I expected that kind of shows this, and that was the Last Voyage of the Demeter. It was a good movie. It was a lot of fun. Saw it this summer, a good vampire flick. Obviously, it takes place in the middle of Dracula, but I felt one change in it that I wasn't keen on was it had kind of like the weakening of religion. Like the religious elements in the movie were actually kind of a vulnerability for the characters. And the reason I didn't like it is just because if it's going to play within the Dracula storyline, it should probably follow the same rules. So it felt like it was kind of pulling back from the religious aspects that are in Dracula, which are quite present. But then the other movie I was thinking of with this conversation was Talk to Me. Came out this summer, made a bit of waves, and I'm going to say that was actually one of the best horror movies I've seen in a long time, and it did not hold punches, and it brought in a possession story, but not within the trappings of like a Catholic church movie. It felt fresh and original, and I think that is why partly why it's been scaring a lot of people, and it's gotten some good feedback is because it's bringing back what scares us with an Exorcist movie, but within a new framework.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That easily, I agree 100%. That easily is one of the best horror flicks I've seen in a few years. I mean, it just nailed it.
So I'm definitely going to have to see that one from the streaming.
Oh, absolutely. But we'll continue on with questions for Paul.
Well, I also wanted Paul to talk about his other novel because one of the very first things I ever read by Paul actually was several years ago, and I always like to say this for all the best and worst things. It's all Brian Keene's fault. But on the horror show, he was talking about the horror show, the magazine, and then he was talking about the horror show, Best of by Cemetery Dance Collection. And I, as an obedient follower, I ran right out and I bought it. And that's where I came across Paul's first two stories. I can't even remember the names of them now. I don't know why I can't remember the names of them now. The one about they came from the suburbs, and then the other one about the small town where they have that visitor who comes every year, and they start wondering if he's the personification of death. And I was like, wow, this is at that point I had heard Paul's name bounced around a couple times, but that was the first time I'd read his work. And as it happened, Cemetery Dance was putting out his collection that also had that wonderful novella, Bloody Bones, in it. So I went and got that, and that was when I was doing my column for Cemetery Dance. And I emailed Paul, and Paul's like, well, I have this novel called Alexander's Song. He kind of explained me the history behind it. He sent it to me. And it's just I like to call it the most beautiful novel I've ever read that I wish more people would read. And that was why I picked it up for Cemetery Dance. I can't say enough about this novel. So I was wondering, Paul, if you wanted to share a little bit about Alexander's Song and what that novel is all about, for our current listening audience and for the folks that will catch us later tomorrow.
Sure. Alexander's Song, the plot summary is fairly straightforward. The book itself is not. It's about a school teacher who's a fan, basically obsessed with a writer who was in the pantheon of great American literature back in the 30s and 40s and into the 50s, and who died in the 1960s. And the school teacher goes to the author's hometown, which is a very small town in Upper Michigan where I live and where most of the things I write are set. And he's hoping as he starts out to write a series of articles, perhaps, or essays or something of that type about this author's life. And to learn about his life, he figures I'll start as early as I can get. I'll dig back into his childhood in this town. And as he tries to dig into the life of this writer, he hits more and more brick walls, more and more resistance, and gradually begins to uncover some pretty dark secrets about the writer's life. And that's sort of the jumping off point for a book that I believe it crosses a lot of genres. It's not a horror novel, but there's horrific elements and sort of I always said it had the spirit of a horror novel. It had the heart of a horror novel, even though it's not a horror novel. It's got elements of thrillers, but it's not a thriller. It's got elements of mystery, but it's definitely not a standard whodunit. There's not a detective, digging up clues and talking to suspects. And it's got a lot of elements of just mainstream literature. So largely because of that, when I wrote the book originally many, many years ago, thinking it was going to be my big breakthrough book that was going to catapult me beyond the horror genre and onto into the world of mainstream bestsellers success, instead it just about ended my career, because for years all I heard was that everybody who read it loved it and nobody would publish it. It was too big, would have been too expensive to publish. It was too unusual. There was no way to categorize it or pigeonhole it into any kind of genre. And I heard again and again and again from editors and agents that, this is really good, but I have no idea what to do with it. So sorry, I'm going to send it back to you. And so I put it away for many, many, many years, decades, until I was able to self-publish it as an ebook. And then that's where you discovered it, Kevin.
Yes. And when I was tapped to start up the paperback line, it's one of the very first things I said, I want to publish that novel. You would love it, by the way.
So
the novel
confirms that writers are insane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
No, you love it, Tom, because it's got that mix of history and history and thriller aspects. I think you really love it. So yeah, I'll by all means, everyone go buy Alexander's Song. Oh, look, Horror DNA Steve has joined us. Yay! Awesome. All right, so Chuck, do you have anything that you wanted to say or add or type in?
Nope. I'm good to go. I'm just trying to sit on that mute button. Sorry, Paul. We apologize just for the technical issues, but it seems to be working.
So why don't we kick it over to Bob Ford? Bob Ford is our other guest, and he is his most recent. There it is, the Dead Pennies that we published in August. Probably one of the best ghost stories that I've read in quite some time. Oh, and there it is. There's the crushed doll head right there.
Oh, I forgot about that thing. That and that guy getting his groin ripped apart by that dead body in that movie.
Oh, when we watched that other movie.
Bob, every time you're on board, we get some scary things.
Yeah,
I guess so.
The last time Bob was with us, we watched Pieces.
Yes, Pieces. That's right.
Pieces. Yeah, and you were just waiting for that ending.
Was fun. Oh, I couldn't wait for it. Your reactions. I didn't even look at the movie. I was watching your reactions instead.
I still think that was one of the number one best. It didn't matter how nonsensical it was. One of the best endings that I've ever seen. So, Bob, why don't you share a little bit with us about Dead Pennies, the story, the background, anything going with it? You've also got an interesting giveaway going too.
Yeah, the Dead Pennies. It spawned from a conversation I had with somebody, and they were kicking around. You know how everyone wants to help you as a writer. I have this great story that I'd like to tell you about, or I've got a good idea. I'll share. You should. It would make a great book. You should write this.
I'll share it with you. We could co-write it.
Yes, that. So years ago, a guy that I knew at the time, he was like, you need a cool title for like a blog or something. Like he randomly said this one day. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like I have a website. I have, whatever. And he's like, no, you should call it like the Dead Pennies or something. And I was like, what does that even mean? And he's like, I don't know. It sounds cool. And
because they were going to discontinue pennies as money?
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. So it's stuck in my mind. And about, I don't know, 3 years after that, my subconscious had apparently been working on it for this entire time to attach a story to it. And I usually, if I'm in note-taking stage in the process of writing, I'll throw on a documentary maybe in the background or something just to kind of absorb and have background noise. Well, this day it happened to be about the Willowbrook School. And it was this absolutely horrific state school. And they put mentally challenged children. Maybe they were deformed. Maybe they were mentally challenged. Maybe something was going on. But these children basically were stuffed there into the most amazingly horrific conditions. And it would roughly be about one nurse per 20 patients, residents, I guess, at the time. And the more that I thought about it, it collided with the title of Dead Pennies. And it started developing, and I started taking notes and started jotting things down. And the term, the phrase for me, the Dead Pennies, so many of us, when we were younger, some of us would go sit pennies on train tracks, let the train run over them. So you got this long flattened penny, or whatever. Okay, over time, if a penny is dented or crushed or flattened by a train track, I developed this theory that they called those dead pennies at the U.S. Mint. They were unfit for U.S. or unfit for human circulation. Hold on, I have no idea what just happened with my audio there, but I had this theory developed that they were called the dead pennies. These children, they were unfit to be around for humans circulation, and the story just kind of developed from there. Really hard, very fast. It was my first venture into a truly supernatural based novel. And the more that I wrote about it, the more the characters started developing. And it's the only thing I've written so far that I creeped myself out in moments. So it was fun. It was a blast.
And this is from the author of Burner, which creeped the hell out of me. And I'm not normally that scared by stuff.
Well, the current project that I've been taking ungodly amount of notes on is in the same sort of tone and voice as Burner.
Oh,
it won't be the same topic matter.
Drowner.
I don't want to venture into the research that I had to do for Burner again. That was some rough stuff.
Yeah, that sounds like a rabbit hole that nobody's gonna want to go down.
Oh,
nah, I'm good on that aspect of things. I covered that topic. That was a really unusual novel for me to write from the start. I mean, I was driven. At times I felt like I was typing. I couldn't type fast enough to keep up with the words on that one.
And that novel burns right along. It really does. It's a fast novel.
I mean, I like that. I mean, schools are terrifying no matter what, especially Kevin and I and Dave actually have this experience of being in our schools when there's no one around, and a quiet school is just terrifying. But then what you brought up about how it's basically a state home, And I think it wasn't until the 1990s where they started taking mental health more seriously, so they seem more terrifying. Like, it does sound like this is getting close to. I know this movie. I never saw it because I'm petrified of it. Called The Boys of St. Vincent, and it just dealt with orphan boys in New Brunswick who were being just sexually and physically abused by brothers of a Christian school because they were just the ones no one wanted, and that actually sounds terrifying. Thanks, Bob. Now I'm gonna be scared.
Happy to help.
Brad Pitt. Sleepers. Yeah, that was an intense.
Sleepers. Yeah, Lorenzo Carcaterra. Yeah.
So I like how, Bob, you're in this case. You're doing a back. Well, when we say past, to us, it's not the past, but it is. Again, it's not until the 1990s where they started taking these things more seriously with mental health, reform schools, all that stuff, and just what people had to go through back then.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your nifty little giveaway? Has that been completed yet, or is that still in the run?
No. The names will be announced tomorrow. Well, I showed you. I've got 4 of these little guys, these little ornaments, and they are the. This will really make sense after people read it. A doll head with its face chewed off, and. And then the grand prize is a custom decorated box with the dead pennies on it, and we've got some character names going on through here.
Nice.
So, Dave, have you ever wondered why Kevin was so dark at times?
I get it now. It's true.
Yeah, we've got a little ornament in there too, But yeah, no, it was a blast. It was a blast of write. It was a the reactions from people have been great, and no, I'm stoked for it. Could be happier to be published with Cemetery Dance, and it's been a great process from the start.
I got to tell you, I couldn't stop thinking about when especially when Ben Baldwin came up with the cover art. Do you remember that one story you told us about? I don't know what it was. It was a thrift store or something like that, and you went out behind the thrift store and it had all these doll parts nailed up on trees and stuff.
Man. That is I remember the story. It's a candy shop coming from York toward the Gettysburg area.
Okay.
It is a candy shop called Mr. Ed's. And it's been there. It has been there forever. It burned down and they rebuilt it. And there's a huge elephant out front, the statue, but the little forest that is outside the candy shop, yes, there are doll parts, doll heads. It is like a haunted little forest.
And it's only get dolls in Mexico City that it's close to that.
But they have every candy on the planet that you can, if there's ever any candy that you look at, you're like, wow, you know what? I haven't seen that in like 20 years. No, they have it. They've got it in the corner somewhere. It's everything on the planet. It's an awesome place, but it's creepy.
It's a little insidious when you think about it. You're wondering, is this like the gingerbread house that's luring the kids into, just go out back. There's a special prize out in the woods.
A little bit. Well, the sketchy thing is it's really close to a state park. Yeah, you could go missing there and you would never be heard from ever again.
Dear God, Bob.
I just realized my lap. Can you plug my laptop in there? Is that Tom or somebody? I just realized my laptop's not plugged in because we were screwing around with laptops so much. It's not plugged in. I'm just like, oh, look at our battery.
Yeah, sure.
So Paul, Bob was talking a little bit about projects he's currently working on now. You were chatting with me about something that you were working on. What do you got on the burner, on the horizon, as far as on the burner, about stuff you're working on now?
I'm working on 2 things at the moment. I'm usually working on more than one thing at any one time, bouncing back and forth. And one is kind of a straight crime novel, which is a departure for me. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And Kevin, you're kind of familiar with the background story of that one because You know, we tinkered with an earlier version of it quite a while ago now. So there's that, and then I have my monstrous War and Peace size, I'm afraid, haunted house ghost story kind of thing that I've been working on for quite a while. And I'm finally, I think I can say there's some light at the end of the tunnel that may not be a train rushing at me. And I'm hoping that I'll get it finished up. What's that?
So we authors are familiar with that feeling.
Yeah. I'm still not sure if it's a genuine light, but I'm hopeful, and I think I can get it finished up at some point in 2024. I'd like to finish them both up next year. So the crime novel is fair, other than the fact that the genre is new to me and a learning experience with a learning curve. It's rather straightforward and, you know, kind of glumps along under its own power. The haunted house ghost story book doesn't have its own power, really. I got to keep lifting it up and kicking it around a little bit. So, but it's, like I said, I have hope.
I'm definitely looking forward to the haunted house one. That's my jam right there. That is. So, Chuck, you've been awful quiet tonight. Plus, your screen has just been frozen on you doing this the entire.
You've been playing with
I can see that. But what
perpetually?
You look very thoughtful.
Yeah, I'm deep in thought. I mean, at least it froze there instead of me picking my nose or something. That's all I have to say.
So, Chuck, did you have anything that you wanted to pick Bob or Paul's brains on? Not literally, because we're not zombies.
Yeah, no, I guess maybe a question I'd ask is they've both been writing for a while. Just maybe thoughts on what's really changed in recent years with the horror genre and horror writing, or where they think things are going. I guess since he's unmuted, I'll throw that question to Bob first. Of just thoughts on where things have come or where they're headed.
Well, I think, Kevin, you had mentioned earlier about, we were talking about religious horror, about things going in cycles. And I think that you're absolutely right. I think not only with religious horror, but across the board, now we're seeing so many horror movies that are incorporating social media into the aspects of horror plots. It's things on Zoom calls, it's things on, on social media. If you saw this video on your phone, something happened or whatever. I think it's a shift. And I think with the development, AI technology, for one, is an example. It's developing so rapidly. And I think that fears of that's why Black Mirror, I think, as a series is doing so amazingly well, is because there's so many aspects of how technology can affect us in our life. That has become now that's a fear, a real fear of certain things. And I think, I don't know, I think it just goes in cycles. I mean, when I was young, it was okay. Well, there was the Cold War, that was a fear. I was a little bit, it was a little bit before, my time, but they were doing, students used to do bomb drills and get under the desks in school. The schools that I went to, they still had the bomb shelters, in the basement of the school. Kids today look at that, and that means nothing really to them.
Right.
They might raise an eyebrow and ask what that is, but to them, there's not that real fear. So I think the shift is, and Tom, you mentioned earlier, jump scares and things like that. Yeah, they're fun for a moment, and then it's gone. That's past. But that real underlying current of true constant fear of something, that's shifted. And I think maybe that it's shifting so quickly, it's hard to put a finger on the pulse of what that actually is.
Yes.
At times, I think that's what I've seen as far as a change in the fear and what hits people's nerves. And, with Burner, I scrapped all of that and I just went back to, this is human horror. This is the evil that men do. And you could read about this in tomorrow's newspaper or hear it on the news and go, yeah, okay, that's 100% believable. that's repulsive and unbelievable, but that's believable. I think that's where we're coming back to. But that's why it's so great and to see breakthroughs like Talk to Me, which is a fresh take on the possession, like CW said, and it's a new story on things. And it's like, okay, this hits the mark. That was so unbelievably pleasing to see that movie and finish and go, somebody can still do it. Somebody can still pull it out. That's great.
I guess okay.
Paul,
So
how about
the
you?
10 question at Paul. Yeah.
Well, after that wonderful response from Bob, I feel like I should just shut my mouth and go home because
no.
That was brilliant stuff. I definitely agree, on the cyclical nature of everything. I'm currently answering some questions for a interview for a website, and one of the questions asked if I thought vampires would ever come back to their former popularity. And it's like, well, heck, I don't know for sure, but I feel pretty confident that yes, they will, because everything just goes around and around and around again. So something will come along, a movie, a best-selling novel, and it'll kick off the trend all over again, and we'll be off to the races. And it's that way with everything. I also want to say that I also was a little too young for duck and cover under the school desk drills. However, we did have a bomb shelter in our school, and about once a month we had a fire drill and a bomb shelter drill where the air raid sirens would go off and we'd all have to troop down into the bomb shelter and stay until we got the all clear. And if you were a kid in the 50s or 60s, in my case, you got used to seeing those 3 triangle fallout shelter signs everywhere. And we were always told when we went out in public, look like they tell you when you check into a hotel, first thing you do is see where the fire exits are. We were always told the first thing you do when you're at the shopping center or the movies or wherever you are at school, find out where the bomb shelter is so that you can get there quickly when you need it. So growing up with that kind of fear, I don't know, but it definitely leaves a mark for sure.
Well, Paul, do you remember the series The Day After?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I just watched it a while ago. It's on YouTube. So.
Yeah, that scared the hell out of me. That was real life fear. That was real life fear. This could happen any day.
I think it was ever on broadcast television. And of course, it feels very dated now. But for those of us who were alive at that time, it's easy to recapture that fear when you watch it.
Well, it's like I remember in high school 2 novels that I read that I would consider absolute horror novels. But again, it was the time because I grew up, very similar to Bob. We were during the 80s and Russia was going to nuke us any single moment. And the 2 novels that I remember reading was The Last Babylon and On the Beach, which On the Beach was an absolute and I was a teenager and I'm reading On the Beach, that last scene at the end where they're getting in a submarine and leaving and you're like, they're just all going to die. All of them, they're all going to die. And I remember just my heart getting ripped out of my chest. But that was also doubly scary because at that time, the wall hadn't come down yet. Nukes were still pointing at each other, and that's the kids today. I don't think even though nuclear war is still a potential threat, especially with so many different people who have them, it's not that imminent, like war games and all the stuff that we had when I was a kid, where this stuff was just frightening as hell.
Well, I was just going to bring that up, Kevin, because the Hollywood was feeding into that and playing off of it as, of course they are. War games, Red Dawn. It was like all of those things only cemented it further as a fear. Like this could happen,
Yep. Okay, so we're approaching just the hour mark here left. Tom, did you have anything that you wanted to ask both Paul and Tom about their books, about writing in general?
Well, I mean, I told Dave I was trying to work on a writing cozy and his character's called Ennui and Hank.
Tom wants to write a cozy mystery about.
That's where the money
Seton.
is, guys.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If it's Jessica Fletcher, that's where the money's sold. But I always like, and I do like to, pick the brains of authors, horror authors, when it comes to, like, well, I don't know if I should ask you guys, because then you may want to do it and then steal from each other. But like,
there's nothing sacred. But beg, borrow, and steal.
If there was a movie or a book on a specific horror topic you like to see come out, like a setting. I know that sounds weird, but it's kind of like how after I first saw The Thing, I thought, and then I also saw, believe it or not, it's a series on Netflix called The Head. It's more thriller, scary, but it's set in the Antarctic too.
Okay.
So I mean, I would find horror in like the Antarctic or North Pole to be just terrifying. So, I mean, without you guys going into detail, because you might think about it later, any setting or something like that you would love to see happen?
You mean is to utilize for one of our own books, or
if you're hoping for a movie to come out that wasn't just a bunch of half-naked idiots running around getting slaughtered.
What's wrong with half-naked idiots?
They're not fully naked. That's
what's
wrong with it.
All right, they have to be fully naked.
I know that sounds weird, and I know that's like one of my weird things. It's like, what setting would this really work in? Should we have more suburban horror, more rural horror, more urban horror? Like when the last Scream movie came out, it was kind of surprising they set it in New York City.
New York City, yeah.
I mean,
so so Tom's convoluted question is, what would you like to see either as a setting in particular for horror? Okay. Maybe hasn't been done, or
I don't know. Okay, I'll tell you what appeals to me is when I first saw an American Werewolf in London, that first transformation in absolute bright room light when he turns into the werewolf floored everybody, because that had never been done before. First of all, it was done really well, but it was in bright light right in front of you. This wasn't in the darkness in the full moon. You saw every bone break and pop and stretch and do all that. You expect horror to be in an abandoned house, in an industrial warehouse basement somewhere. You expect horror to be in those things. Give me a believable horror story in a modern day new housing development that doesn't involve ancient Indian burial grounds underneath.
Poltergeist.
Give me a story where it is a perfectly beautiful family. They're the picture perfect family, and everyone thinks they're the picture perfect family, except they are not at all in any way, shape, or form. Stay away from the ghost side of hauntings on that and give me something like that. And again, it's one of those things that, to me, if I can read about it in the morning news and go, wow, that's unbelievably horrific, but yeah, I can believe that. That's the kind of impact. That's the kind of thing that's going to impact me right now.
Paul and Chuck are writing notes down.
You know what you made me think of?
Yes, there is something in my to be written pile that would qualify. So.
Sure it is.
Bob, it made me think of. Did you ever see the movie Vivarium? Was it Vivarium?
Loved it. Vivarium.
Yeah, right. That's what you're talking about with Jesse Eisenberg. That was nerve-wracking. That movie was.
Yeah, it was great. That kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time, wondering what the hell was going on. I loved it. Yep. Thought it was great.
Paul, how about you?
I can't think of anything in particular setting-wise. I've always been a quiet horror guy, and I'd like to see, generally speaking, more quiet horror. I think we, again, cyclical, but I feel that, we're wandering farther and farther away from the quiet horror that we think of with, like Charlie Grant and that sort of thing. And I would like to see some sort of shift in that direction, I think. As far as the question about urban and rural and things, I lived through that transition once. You know, when I was starting out in the 70s, everything was rural horror,
Right.
you know, and folk horror, Harvest Home, and then Stephen King came along with everything being set in a small town in Maine, and so, you know, rural horror was where it was at. And then things started the transition towards splatterpunk, and everything started to become more urban. And in fact, the transition was so sharp and definite that my editing partner, the late David Silva, and I were working on an anthology project, and we ditched it. We threw out our proposal and did a proposal for a anthology of urban horror. So because it was a major shift, and we wanted to catch a wave for a change instead of being behind the curve all the time. And we did get the book published. That was Dead End City Limits was the name of that anthology. And so I lived through that once, and I don't think it matters so much. It doesn't matter so much where it's set, but thematically, I'm always going to be a quiet horror guy, and I don't think at this point that's going to change. And so I would just like to see more of that.
I know it probably sounds weird. I wouldn't mind seeing more desert horror. I know a couple of years ago we drove cross country to Arizona, and when we got out there to like New Mexico, we were driving through those deserts, and I was just thinking to myself, man, it's desolate out here, you know. And it's like I always used to see in the Hollywood movies, you know, someone living in a little trailer in the middle of the desert. I'm like, is that really real? And they were driving through New Mexico, and I'm like, sure enough, there's these little trailers just out in the middle of this wide, you know, spread of desert. And there's one really good one that the title doesn't make it sound like it'd be very good. I think it's called Head Count. And it's a really great film about this mythical creature that it adopts your likeness before it, like right after it knocks you off. It adopts your likeness and then works its way through a group, and it was knocking off these group of kids one by one, and it would turn out to be a remarkably, you know, tense movie. And it being in that setting, that desert horror. There's another movie which you've probably seen, The Endless, by the and I like that setting out there in the desert, because everything just seems so. And the fact that was very much cosmic horror, but it wasn't a New England coastal, or it wasn't it was in the desert, and the desert itself just seems so, in a way, big and alien. I'd love to see more of that. I would.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about more urban horror, and I mean, we already seen, like, in fact, the Saw series made industrial wasteland horror a big thing already, you know, so it's kind of like if you're in Detroit. But no, if it's, I mean, I have to say like Manhattan or Los Angeles or some major city where this sort of thing's just not supposed to happen, and there could be safety all over, but at the same time, there's no safety.
Tom, have you seen Barbarian?
I've heard of it. I've not
I
seen
haven't
it
seen
yet.
that yet.
Oh, guys, you need to watch that. 100%,
Okay.
you need to watch that.
Right.
When you and here's what made me thought of it, because you mentioned Detroit, and these things shouldn't happen here. Whatever. Watch Barbarian. Don't read anything about it. Go in completely blind on it.
I can hear me.
Correct.
Chuck, the man of the thinker pose. Is there a setting of horror that you haven't seen yet, or you would like to see more of?
That's his author picture.
As it is.
Yeah, that's the author picture. No, what I'd love to see more of. I've mentioned before. I love, you know, cryptid horror. I love legends, myths, things that kind of get on the edge of you know, fantasy and in reality. I'd love to see that done at other locations around the world. Just an example, get a high budget Manananggal horror film set in the Philippines or something like that. There's so many rich stories from around the world. I'd love to see the stories of those cultures done with a good Hollywood-sized budget.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna add one more on here.
Yeah,
because as a history teacher, explore some of the lesser known like things of the past and make a horror movie out of it. Like I know Germany did this, but in the early 1920s, the Hinterkaifeck murders. Have you ever heard of those?
No, I've never heard of them.
Hinterkaifeck, a family of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, family of 4 plus their maid, so 5 altogether, were found murdered on their farm. And there was evidence that the killer stayed there, ate there, tended to the animals, and was never found again. So it would be like a great. I know there was a German attempt at this movie, but it's kind of hard to find it. I know that sounds weird, but one of those lesser known things of history instead of the usual Nazi zombie thing.
As long as it's not a movie about a German puppet maker named Robert.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Robert
yeah,
the
that's what they've been doing,
Worst movie ever. Nothing happens for
it
the
was
whole
terrible.
movie.
And it's not the only one. There's a few of them.
There's like a bunch of them. We were so a little bit of backstory about this as we're closing. We used to do a movie watch, which we're probably going to get back to eventually, and we had a choice between 31 by Rob Zombie or Robert the Toy Maker or Pup Maker or whatever, and we used to do this little wheel thing that would choose
Wheel
for us,
of Destiny.
the Wheel of Fate or whatever, and it chose Robert the Pup Maker. We're just sitting there going, nothing. Every now and then this commandant would like pontificate, and nothing would happen until we were ready for puppets to kill Nazis, and nothing.
You chose poorly.
The last 5 minutes.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes. Finally, the puppets are. All they did was like stare creepily.
I'd rather watch a sci-fi movie, man.
But like Bob said, there's a whole series of them. This is like apparently nothing.
They pump out crap, make money, and you guys aren't making money. There's something wrong here.
I don't know. Anyway,
hey, we don't need your negativity right now, Tom.
Well, like I was telling Bob, and Bob said this yesterday. I was watching a movie on. If you want to talk about that, talking about. I would love to. I don't know about you guys. Find a market for writing scripts. I got to learn how to write a script first. I've never written a script first. I had a friend who, back when Sci-Fi was doing their movie of the week, the Sci-Fi Channel was like doing their creature feature movie of the week. So they're just pumping them out. I had a friend who just cold called, basically cold emailed Sci-Fi, like one of the producers, and said, I'm a screenwriter. I write them. So he got a chance to write 3 different sci-fi movies, and I watched one last night called Snakehead Swamp, which is on Tubi, and it's actually really pretty good. And he said that writing for sci-fi was an interesting enterprise because you didn't really so much pitch the story; they just gave you a list of these outlandish titles, and you picked a title. And then pitched the story, wrote the story for that title. Like he wrote a movie for them called Ozark Sharks. During the shark craze, when it was like Sharknado and Sharknado 2, Ozark Sharks he wrote for the Sci-Fi Channel. So I'd be more than happy, and I don't know how many people know
100%.
this. I don't know how many people know this, but Ron Malfi. Is this a secret, Bob? Should we not be saying this on the show?
Say it.
Do you know Ron Malfi?
I think you're okay.
So Ron Malfi, for a long time there, I don't know if he actually made any money from it, but Ron Malfi had this whole secret screenwriting career under the name of Robbie Ribspreader.
Ooh,
Robbie Ribspreader, and he was writing these super gory, slashy. Scripts. And I was thinking to myself, this would not be a bad gig. I mean, I love teaching, but like if I could find a way into writing these, like Snakehead Swamp, it had some pretty dodgy CGI, and there's a little bad acting here and there, but it's the type of movie I'd be like, I'd own it. I wrote that crappy movie for $2,000. I'd be pimping the heck out of that. So. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to find my way into
I would do that in a heartbeat, 100%.
Yep.
Just the title, and then you come up with everything else. Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Throw the question to Paul. See if he's ever thought of doing those kind of TV series or movies.
Sure. It's always been one of those bucket list kind of things. And I agree. Absolutely. What could be better than getting just a list of outlandish titles and getting to go through and pick 2 or 3 that you wanted to do? I can't imagine anything that would be much more fun than that. Depending on how much oversight and meddling there was later, but I'm guessing there probably wasn't much in that case.
My friend said it was all budgetary. Like when he was writing the script, the movie opened with a voodoo guy casting a voodoo spell, and he wanted an old, decrepit Southern plantation mansion. And then the script writing notes were like, "Make it a shack. We can't afford the mansion." So it was little things like that. But yeah, I highly recommend it. Snakehead Swamp, written by Greg Mitchell. It's on Tubi. Go watch it. It's a little bit of whiskey helps. But it's a lot of fun. It captures that, like, I don't know if you remember when sci-fi was pumping those movies out when they first discovered CGI effects. It captures that period very well. So, it's not a bad movie.
Would you be willing to do a screenwriter for a Chuck Tingle movie?
Oh, I would write a Chuck Tingle movie in a heartbeat. In an absolute heartbeat.
Oh yeah.
I'd ghostwrite a Chuck Tingle novel.
100%.
So, Chuck, Tom, do we have any final questions, comments for our guests this evening?
No, Paul, Bob, I'd just like to thank you for coming on
and weathering our audio troubles, which apparently were all Paul's fault to begin with.
It happens.
That's okay.
Thank you guys for having us.
It was excellent having you, and Chuck is still rocking the thinker pose there.
Still thinking. I will say, Bob, will you be with us at Halloween Scares in Wilkes-Barre this year?
100%. Yeah,
right.
Life's been crazy, but I'm stoked. Can't wait for it.
Okay, awesome. I sent you a message. Bring some books, and we'll get you in there.
Awesome.
Will do.
Well, for our viewers later on this week who will be watching this on YouTube, make sure you go out and get The Dead Pennies by Bob Ford, and also get anything else by Bob Ford. Also go out and get Alexander's Song and the Night Prophets by Paul S. Olson, but also grab his collection through Crystal Lake called Whispered Echoes. It's a wonderful collection. Thanks for everyone for joining us, and we'll be here in another month with hopefully we'll figure out our tech. It's not really your fault, Paul. It's what it is. It's the StreamYard curse. So we'll see who it strikes next time.
It's completely your fault.
Let's
give Paul a chance to say his goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay. All right.
No, I really appreciate the chance to be here tonight. It was a lot of fun, and I owe Cemetery Dance a lot for the way that Rich and all the guys have supported me over the years for a lot of years. And so I'm just delighted to be here. And I'm sorry I caused so many problems for everybody.
No, like I said, next time there'll be something else. So, but
that'll be Kevin's fault.
So anyway, what's our closing model? Eat, drink, and be scary. Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone. End the stream. End stream.